we focused more on a teacher side environment. Similarly, we focused on the evaluation process of education or teaching learning process. Then we focused on the laboratory side also. But all these things, what we are doing, are ultimately going to the domain of a student as such. Generally, being a science person or professional course teachers, we follow the beginning as a domain of our concern, domain of our research, and all these things. So I feel a little bit what I can see keen about the observations going on, the discussions which we had in the last couple of days. Somewhere the component of a domain or the student as a domain is missing somewhere, and I realized that it has to be focused in this particular program as such. We try to identify the peoples probably, but in a short time we could not uh, identify the persons kind of the thing. But since last couple of years, I'm working totally on this particular domain as such. Maybe 4 years of my last 4 years, I'm working in this particular domain. I'm trying to understand that in a current scenario, how the next generation or coming generation is looking towards the teaching and learning process. I am trying to compare all these things with the history of teaching learning process as such, and we are trying to analyze that where we do stand, how the current technology is contributing, and because of this, what kind of change we are getting in the process of teaching learning process. So with the last 4 days discussions, I may say that, and our objective of transforming the teaching learning process from conventional to digital mode. So where we do stand about the student domain. So we'll try to highlight some of the things of this process. So I begin with the best teaching method, then the process of teaching and its component, and out of these components, which one or numbers can we affect through the process of our experience as or being the presence of teacher in the classroom or in the virtual classroom or in the interaction mode as kind. Some of the case studies which I have realized or I am following in the last couple of years with my students as such. So let us see what I can contribute in this short time span which is available with us. The best teaching method, in a simple words, we can say that is the one that your student respond to. So ultimately, all the effects, if we are focusing on the domain of student as a domain, so the domain and its response to the change is most essential, and the most important thing is the of a teaching learning process is the domain of our concerns. A master teacher adjusts his or her methods and strategies in response to his or her students' ability to learn the material being presented, kind of this. So the most important thing is that if at all you would like to compare a personal teaching that to machine learning process or learning through machines. So here is the dynamism or the important component we may focus that why in a current scenario a teacher is required, kind of this. A teacher is a one who can have the understanding about the student who is sitting or to whom a teacher wish to give some insight about his features, and accordingly he wish to mold him towards his objective. Right? So this will be a one and the only parameter we may say that can contribute or justify the presence of teacher in the current scenario as such. As long as if you refer to the literature, a lot of literature is there, no doubt. Just to have some logical flow to my presentations, I am putting some of these slides. But my emphasis is on the case studies which I am following. I am trying to justify my candidature as a teacher and how a teacher is required in the current scenario too. Okay, so the teaching styles, the authority styles, maybe it can be defined as it is a teacher-centered and frequently entails lengthy lecture sessions kind of this thing. Another little bit simplified way of teaching learning process or is the demonstrator style. It retains the formal authority role by showing the students what they need to know. So a little bit concerns to the student is going more. Then facilitator style, it promotes self-learning and helps students develop critical thinking skills and retain knowledge that leads to the self actualizations kind of. So more and more delegations towards the student side will happen as you follow these teaching styles. Another comfortable style, we can say the delegator's style is the best suited for laboratory sessions kind of these things or in a professional laboratory sections or research kind of. And the last one is a hybrid style where one may practice the combinations of all these styles to make the best out of the given situation kind of this thing. So it follows an integrated approach to teaching that blends the teacher's personality and the interest with the students' needs and curriculum appropriate methods he may follow kind of this thing. So with this a classification of or characterization of teaching styles, we can go for the another component of teaching learning is the uh, learning by the students kind of this. What if you focus on the student side? So what are these scenarios are? So the students may be of a different styles or different styles of learning they may have. Students of various levels, their intellectual level, involvement in the different students, as we know that IQ, EQ, SQ, these parameters. Then different strategies of learning students, they have their own capability of thinking, applying and all these things. So they are always planning based on our inputs or the societal input and experiences kind of thing. So with the different types of interest, they are following the teaching learning process. Learning why all the students must ultimately, the objective is that a teaching learning process and its objectives are the learning by all the students must increase at least in the same proportions, and lastly, the weaker students to learn more kind of this. Okay, so I was thinking always a kind of a comparative mode that conventional teaching and online teaching, where the difference we people have to focus and kind of these things. So conventionally and online teaching methods, as long as contents are or it's the planning and then to using the tools probably may be followed in the same line. There may not be a much difference kind of these things, but if you consider the skills also, we may have similarity, but there is a difference in a conventional way. Skills to engage the students through the entire session was the objective. That is how to control the class, how to maintain the dynamism is in the class one-to-one or face-to-face scenario was there. But here, different scenario we may observe in the online teaching, skills to engage the students through the entire sessions, but we don't have much in our hand that how one can go for. And to get the answer to these house, we are working in since last couple of days or almost a couple of months. Whole universe is working on this particular side. So similarly, other parameters are also listed, and we are trying to get the solutions because of changing scenario from conventional classroom teaching to the online teaching process as such. How to have the evaluation process, then how to build the confidence and all these things. Okay, so uh, ultimately, what is the need or why online learning is a better? As we have followed in the last couple of days or couple of months, we realize that if you compare the conventional teaching learning process and digital teaching learning process, we realize that through the different expert that digital or online teaching learning process is taking a better shape, and getting all the society is getting convinced over the conventional teaching learning process. So what it counts for is demand for digital content. So all the industry peoples and the society is looking or demanding that digitization of knowledge is the main concern. Then this is taking less time to concerns to the commitment kind of these things. Tracking of learning patterns is possible through the digitization of the knowledge. The high retention rate, social learning and collaborations are possible through the digitization of learning process or the knowledge as such. So if at all, if it is a process, then how it can be? The process of teaching learning teaching learning, how it can be justified is in this, there is a teacher, then he teaches, then and the students is learning the source, the process and destination. We may say that if you want to have the transfer or superimpose on the process as such, there is a kind of a hardware tools, technologies, and a kind of this thing. We follow the process as such, and ultimately we are looking for transformation in the student generation kind of this thing. Ultimately, we are trying to make this process a closed loop, and for that, we follow the feedback process as such. Okay, and through these feedback linkages, we can continuously reform the process, try to extract best of the best out of the given situation as such. So let us emphasize more on this process. So, what are the different components of this teaching learning process? As one is the theme for which, the purpose for which, and how it has been planned or documented a kind of the contents or curriculum as such. Then how to design a particular course or the layout or quantification of the deliverables, and for which are the parameters or learning environment, how that learning environment is going to contribute kind of this. Then most important is this the stakeholder students, the learners, or the process of learning is ultimately happening in the mind of the students kind of this thing. And the teaching or the content delivery is the process which we can. So these are the four components we may focus or we may observe in the process of teaching learning one. So let us contribute or look for which one or many you can affect or make a change in the process of teaching learning. So these can be detailed or further discretized, one can say that, into almost 10 parameters or some few here and there. But to my understanding, these 10 parameters may justify the teaching learning process as such in a better and better way. So this process is prominently should look for a dialogue between teachers and students from the perspective of creating a social presence amongst the communication or discussion between teacher and a student kind of these things. Then another thing is in this process, both should have a learning attitude, learn each other's names or information and all these things. Then this process should be a polite one. Then set a clear expectations as there is a dialogue, communication, expectations. There has to have a clarity amongst the deliverables and the expectations kind of this. So all this process is taking over a certain time period. So there has to have a consistency within the time span or the word time span for which we are looking for. Then, it is a process, it will be a better that there has to have a closed loop. And to make it a closed loop, there we should ask for feedback as early or as frequently as possible. Then you should be enthusiastic about the process and its execution, kind of these things. Then try to follow the or use the active learning process, create opportunity for failures. As always, whenever there is a process is happening, certain change is a process is nothing but change from one destination to another destination, from teacher side to the student side. If at all it is process, then to get a confidence, to get a feel about the process and its what stability kind of this thing, there has to have a certain experiences, I will say that, with confidence and concerns to get about the process. And lastly, we should have the empowerment towards the students, kind of this thing. So as we have a time constraints, so today's class I will try to focus more on these four parameters through the case studies. So all this literature is from the open source, as kind of this lot of literature you can get. But only thing is that personal experiences can be shared with lot of insight, kind of this thing. So I will try to discuss some of the case studies. So I will try to discuss about how to create a social presence in the classroom. Then second, and the learning amongst both. Then use of activity learning and empowerment of students, kind of this thing. So first point, create social presence. What it demands, kind of, or what it looks for it. There has to have a understanding or introduction between, to know each other, get to know you and your students, kind of this. So what can be done or how it can be achieved, we will try to see through the case studies, kind of. I will elaborate more in the further document, kind of. Then another is meet each other as a real people, kind of this thing, because both of the stakeholders are the dynamic personalities, and we are working in a real life. So we should feel that is we are working for each other, and we are following the real mode as such, or real time. Student will stay connected when you create a personal connection, kind of. So what I was thinking or concluding is that today's scenario is altogether going in a little bit diversified, but people are coming to back to the same scenario which was happening in a Gurukul's kind of this thing. In a Gurukul mode of teaching, one of the major important aspects which probably we feel missing is the personal connection, understanding of student and teacher for each other. So what it demands is that, and when we go to the students, we should try to personalize our profile in the mind of students. As Professor Ali introduced me to the audience, we are trying to personalize my profile in your mind, so that you will little bit at least temporarily get convinced that yes, something we may receive from these discussions, kind of this thing. So such kind of exercise teacher has to make in a class when he enters. Otherwise, there is a image working in the society about each and every person. It goes before you reach to your destination or your class. And it is your responsibility, I will say that the teacher's responsibility that we have to ensure that is the right image or image of our personality has established in the class. If not, we have to work by following the different techniques as kind of these things. So let always try to introduce yourself to the class or to the domain, not to hear from others, kind of this. So your interest, whenever possible, you should try to introduce or pass on to the student. Tell them who you are and what you are doing. So try to give better and better information to the student, that is, yes, in which area you are working, what kind of research you are conducting, how you are looking to the technology, what are the your recent ongoings, kind of these things. So the students will realize that yes, our teachers are working in a dynamic mode. You are not only their teachers, you are a real person, kind of these things. Teacher, as we define other styles, teacher is only one way communicator. So we don't want to follow that kind of approach. So you should follow a real life person, kind of these things, and try to see the things kind of. How I try to answer this scenario is that is personalization of these things. So with a lot of my experience or during the years which I served, and from teacher, from the student to teacher to administrators at department level, at the institute level, at the university level, I was always trying to get insight into the process of teaching learning process, the administrators and kind of I. And at the end, in 2015, when I completed my tenure at the university, I worked in the apex bodies of universities. I was the chairman of board of studies of university, where almost 35 college or mechanical engineering departments were affiliated on. So all this process I witnessed for last couple of or almost more than a decade, kind of this thing. But I feel that is okay. We can create the environment, or we can define all these the curriculum. You can define well in manner, try to establish the connectivity on paper between the industry, their expectations, and all these things. We may facilitate from funds, procedures, and kind of these things. But ultimately, a student who is coming to the class is most important. And I realize that after working for long tenure, tenure in the administrators, the most important thing is that teacher should focus more on it. If you want to become a good teacher, really you should focus more on the students and kind of thing. Technologies can be established, can be followed, made, make available. If these are not available with us, you can hire or you can ask for anyone. You can follow any way of getting the things in your hand. But the most important thing is how to enter into the minds of the students is the most important. I started working on these particular dimensions of to understand the teacher, to understand the student domain, kind of this thing. I started approaching the students. I started because one of the psychological parameter which I observed that the young brains are there, and by age there is a large gap which was created there. So first I try to reduce this gap through the proper communication, interactions, and whatnot. So I followed a parental role, and being a parent, after a class, I started interacting with the students. So on campus, I started interacting. I realized that still it is not getting convinced. Thereafter, then I followed visiting to the students who are staying around the college, in the hostels and outside rooms, Then day by day, the environment or the situation started changing, kind of this. And then further I extended my studies, kind of this thing. I started going back to the parents, and I have followed, not only I have followed the Sangli city or the student who are from the Sangli area. As and when I got the opportunity to move around the different cities, is one case I have shown here. When I went to Aurangabad for some personal work, I was having the data of my all students. I identified the students who are staying in the Aurangabad. I called them to their parents. I visited their place. I got the detailed information how the student has brought up till 12th. I collected a lot of information. Then these documents which I have presented on this slide is that this is one of the what I can the highest energetic level attended by this particular student when he scored in the 10th standards, and he was so excited. So this was the information given by his parents as such. And during that time, his success was appreciated by some his fellow relatives or friends. And so this is not a normal watch to this guy, but it is a returns on success. And this particular watch has a different value in the student's mind, kind of this thing. So when I visited the parents of this particular student, he was in college, but I was in Aurangabad. In his absence, I interacted with his parents, and but I got this picture. I documented it in my mobile, and during my next class, I only just presented on a LCD projector that, and I got such a excited information from this particular student, and I realized such kind of things may work in a better and better kind of these things. Then I started extending this particular thought. I visited in person to different people's, their parents as such. Then the collector started collecting the personalized information where the student have attended best of the best, its energy level or performance level, kind of these things. So I come across certain documents, the conventionally the Prashasti gifts are there. But I come across such a document that is the one which is a letter given by principal of student, and this teacher had documented all his achievements, how he had been grown up in that particular school. She had documented, and I realized that if such kind of if we could get in our hands, so first we get the history of the student, how he follows the learning process, teaching learning process, and kind of this. So I got inspired through this particular documents further to this. So these are some of the another photographs of the articles, achievements of different students. This is from one who is from Kolhapur, and another students articles, achievements of different students. This is students Mekta Dongre. She is a player, and she worked as a leader or captain of the team, handball team, for the state team, and kind of these things, that to further at national level or sometime. When I visited her with parents, I come across it's altogether different information, kind of these things. जर मराठीतच सांगायचं झालं तर या मुलीने 12वीचा केमिस्ट्रीचा पेपर अशा पद्धतीनं दिला की त्या दिवशी सकाळी तिने मॅच खेळून आली आणि मॅच जिंकल्यामुळे ज्या उत्साहामध्ये जाऊन तिने जो पेपर लिहिला तो अशा पद्धतीनं झाला की तिच्या त्या पेपरला तिला आउट ऑफ आउट मार्क मिळाले. तर कुठल्याही कामाला एक एक्सायटेशन राहतं आणि एक्सायटेशन मिळवायचं असेल तर तुमच्याकडे काही असे इन्सिडन्सेस असले पाहिजेत असंही या विजिट म्हणून माझ्या लक्षात आलं. So I continued my interactions with other parents too. So almost now a batch which is in the final year, more than 75 to 80% students I visited personally from different cities and towns and villages kind of these things. Lot of personalized information I could get. Overall, if you see the scenario, it is a very much diversified information is there, situations are there. We never think about it when we teach in the class. But if we are the applied science people, we know that the characteristics of the domains plays a major role in the behavior of a domain. So we should not neglect such characteristics of a domain kind of these things. So I once again confirmed logically that yes, the knowledge about the student domain is highly required with a teacher kind of these things. So just you can see one of the photograph which I have showed here. I visited hostels then early in the morning at around 5:30, 6 o'clock. Students started coming, no, no, sir, every day I am waking up early, but today I got late. So I followed them, I motivated them, I took them to the grounds and demonstrate that yes, this is the age where you have to work for your physical or the health also in addition to the knowledge building kind of these things. The another photograph is two of my students are with me and one is a leader was president of MESA kind of these things and another fellow is working in now 3D PLM. Both got inspired and they are always in touch with me. When they come to the Sangli, they come to visit me, interact me, and kind of this. So this is the documentation when I visited hostels in the early morning. I call all the guys on the ground, the way they are. Okay, and day by day, the gap between the students who were staying in the hostel and me started reducing kind of these things. Then the another component, this way I try to answer the personalization between the student and the teacher kind of this thing. Then the second component which I would like to highlight is something like learn from each other's kind of these things. So there has to have a peering, and within the peer you have to have some interaction, and you should follow the way it is expected. So as I say, one at least you should have names or the personal information known to each and everyone as a stakeholders or members of the domain or members of the class for which we are conducting the classes. So this can be taken up in the way start every message you send an individual students with their first names. Try to call them with their first names. It may help to build the confidence between teacher and students. Then require students use each other's name. Students should have such kind of communication. Ask them to tell you about their interest, which I will discuss in the coming slides. And ultimately, finally, don't be afraid to ask the students to be patient and helpful. So we should not forget that there is a facilitation we should have to the students, but at the same time, regulation is also expected from the students kind of these things. So this can be achieved use activity learning kind of these things. You can have the facilitation, but It should not be open loop or open boundary problem condition kind of these things. So don't be abandon the students. Give them the tools. You can facilitate them. Little or no lectures. Okay, you can brief them. Give more and more opportunities. Find way to help students uncover the truth. Okay, so give them some sufficient time, ask them to do the things, ask them to report the things, kind of these things, and build the confidence amongst the students. Let them try, let them practice, let them teach each other. So how this can be achieved? Let us I have conducted different activities for the classes, the first year classes, I will say that. The first activity with the objective of that during the class to conduct the different activities, we form the groups with by following the randomness. So first, when the student come to the first year, they don't know each other. So teachers should try to reduce the gap between all these students community. In a systematic way, there should not be the issues kind of, or the issues like ragging and all this. Definitely come under control kind of these things if you follow or if you involve in the class as kind of. So I worked out the certain groups randomly, then asked the students, gave the theme, and started asking to do something. Then thereafter, students starting calling each other, develop their team spirit, and came up with some document kind of these things. So while doing this, the second objective which I consider is team leader of the student's choice. I asked them, you amongst yourself discuss and see who could be your best leader for performing that particular activity kind of this thing. And the theme which was given, which is related to the academics, and they are supposed to collect the information and perform this particular thing. So, as an outcome of this, so can we hear this? Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Hello, sir. Yes, sir.
So, important at this level for our discussion. But the only thing is that these are the first year students. They entered into the professional programs with the theme and objectives. They prepared their presentation by collecting the informations. They discussed themselves among the group, and integration of the information they did. The time constraint one was given for each student. This is the second one. So they prepared independently their documents, came together, they distributed their work, they planned their work, and they performed their work, kind of these things. So there was a team of around 5 students. So they planned all the things into a systematic way, and they performed the activity. So this way we demonstrated. So this was the first activity. Similarly, the second activity for the same class we planned, but when we worked out the second activity, the formation of group was again changed randomly. But the leader which was identified by the teams, we kept as it is, and with that leader we assigned another group of students, and again the domain of discussion was the extension of topic which they were discussing kind of. So the team leaders is dictated from the teacher side of kind of these things. So we try to emphasize on the constraint under which the students are supposed to develop kind of these things. Then the activity is continued by the students, and then similarly, the whole content of the a course of basic mechanical engineering was so planned through these three activities that ultimately at the end of the semester there was a video on everybody's hand or in everybody's mobile that was describing the whole course as such. So ultimately, their notes we could make ready with them. Then the another parameter which we would like to emphasize more on is empowerment of the students kind of. So the first activity which I have just shown is which we have conducted in the first year class. Similarly, as the students follow the teaching learning process as he grows up from first year to second year to third year and final year, the process of executions is needs to be changed kind of these things. Okay, in the first year they introduced about the preparation of videos, then editing the videos, documenting it, building the teams, working in the teams. There has to have a proper communication. They needs to plan and match the timeline or the deadlines of submission kind of. The most important aspect of creation of videos, which I realize that is many of the aspects which are missing in the conventional presentations kind of these things. I realize that a demonstrator or presenter cannot hear his own presentation kind of these things, his own lectures. But it is possible through the documentation or possible through the getting recorded kind of these things. So because of this documentation, he can become his own evaluator kind of these things. He can evaluate himself. He can compare himself between the what was planned and what has been delivered kind of these things. Identify the gap, work over the gap, and improve himself upon it. Okay, so this process needs certain empowerment from the teacher side over the students kind of this thing. How it can be seen, let us see. So give them everything they need. That means give a theme, give a expectations, give facilitation, and let us expect something that what they are or what for they are on the campus or because of what they come to the teachers or come to the college kind of these things. One is resources, certain expectations from the college or authorities or the teachers. Then there has to be a goal that is getting the job, getting the graduation certificate, uh, and overall developments with a certain outcomes kind of this thing. That is maybe a good class, first class distinction and kind of these things. Authority and responsibility must agree all these things. They take out of these kind of. So how this can be? Students create the discussions, questions. The empowerment may result into students can create the discussions, questions or contents. Students contribute resources, examples, which is questions. Students hold themselves and each other's accountability, kind of these things. So how it can be achieved? Let us again, I have performed another activity in the final year class, or this is a continuous process as such. So in the final year class, I am conducting the course of engineering management and ethics. So this is a highly theoretical subject. We may say that it is an interdisciplinary subject and kind of this thing, and having a weightage of almost 4 hours per week. So to conduct a highly theoretical subject, that to a final year students, maintaining them attainable mode for a complete hour it was a very big task. And ultimately, the students were in the mood of preparation for their gate examinations and all these things. So this was a major concerns to the teacher as such, and that to student also. So I started working on this particular aspect of teaching learning process, and we could come up with a thought, and we implemented it, and really it gave a fruitful results for both to student and teacher. How I have executed? So I started empowering my students, kind of these things. So how I could do these things? So again, I followed the practice. The students, they were very much comfortable about our team. Being I as a teacher, they were aware about the methodology which I have already established. So we created the groups with choice. So here, the one of the aspect which we are conducting is the final year projects, where we gave a choice to form their own groups. At the same time, we gave choice to identify their project guide. So this activity I take up took for executions. The theme was their project, their planning, project planning, their execution, finance, budgeting, and all these things. I asked them to prepare their document up to a certain level, which is a part of the management subject. I asked them to interact with their guides, prepare their the activity one which defines certain management aspect, that is the domain of the team is as per their understanding. They are having a choice to select the team. The leader is also of their choice, then topic is also of their choice. So we were expecting most better and better result in this particular situations, kind of this thing. So one such activity I would like to show here, a project.
We are group number 13. So our project title is real-time temperature monitoring system. So this is the content for our today's presentation. We are going to apply business features to our project. So about our project, so this is the real-time temperature monitoring system for the casting. As we all know, casting process is the extensively used in manufacturing. But problem with this
some couple of minutes we need.
casting defects. One of the main reason for these casting defects.
So this is one she attempted.
Then with the food product is less expensive compared to other similar products.
Another partner from the same team, they divided their work.
Systems would become compact.
Political and socio-economic
Third one.
for this project. Now, as we have discussed earlier, this casting industry which requires some different materials or some different compositions. So
Many aspects of teaching learning process
customers are still unknown.
were exercised through such activities. So I feel that is preparing the presentation, making the documents in the video forms, analyzing them. It gives a lot of insights and practice to the students, kind of. Okay, this is the one activity. Then second activity in line with this, to have the practice of management subject, I focused more on the first two aspects, or all the three aspects of the theme. The formation of group, I changed. We followed a randomization amongst the class. We followed a odd numbers, even numbers, cross numbers, something illogical or situation based. We make a division of the students among 10 or 12 groups. Then we ask them to have brainstorming amongst themselves. Then identify the leader for which, or who will guide that particular team. Then third, the topic or the domain on which they are supposed to work, the area on which or theme on which they are supposed to work. So we discussed a lot on this particular thing, and we identified that being a management subject, we identified the Walchand College itself as a institute or an industry, and that industry always having a different departments, and there is a well organized structure is there. And then we ask these teams to divide and select their department of interest and follow that department as, as long as they are working in that particular department, collect the information, collect the processes, collect the budgets, and all the management aspects which they were supposed to learn. We ask them that yes, whenever they have a doubt, they can refer to the literature, we can have the discussions, but ultimately they have to practice management through this particular activity kind of this thing. So this is the second domain where a lot of constraint the student have to face. The department may not be of their choice, they are not much aware about the situations, they need to interact with the people, and they need to collect the information, put it into appropriate forms, work in a team, have a deliberations, all these things they were supposed to do and come up with a document which may lead. So this is one of the area they identified.
The subtopic under the management of bus is fluid mechanics and machinery. The content we will be discussing here are division, staff, silent features.
So without going to much on the contents, and again, as I said, it is a group activity, but the objective is to practice the management, learn the management.
One lakh meter and the groundwater storage with the land and the
So all the team, they divided again contents, planned their contents, prepared the document. Okay, this way we followed the another dimensions, unknown domains, the area, the situation is not well defined, but still they need to work, they need to manage their resources, work in the team. Then the third, on the same line, we conducted a third activity with a objective of formation of group with the choice. We asked them, then we gave a guide, or sorry, here little bit correction is required. Again, we followed the process which we have conducted in the second activity kind of. But here, the domain of concern, we focused on outside the college kind of this. The students were little bit aware about, they were following the departments which are there in the campus. But now we ask them to go and visit a certain business or the industry which is comfortable for them, where they can interact, they can establish their personal relations, get the information, build the confidence, and come up with a solution kind of these things.
We will discuss about the supply chain management of content of our presentation. Introduction, down with the challenges of chain management. How do they do it? Inventory management.
So this particular team identified the domain as a business group. They went there, collected the information. So content you can get, no doubt. So this is the team.
Mini cold storage and every first one is telephone sales, second one is process. Our test will be there before.
Okay, hope so. the importance of student domain, I could emphasize through these particular discussions. So, with the time and patience listening for my presentation, thank you very much. And if any question is there, definitely we can have.
Sir, one question is from me.
Yes, sir.
You have explained very interestingly all the group activities. Have you ever tried any activity with single students, or individually any task has been assigned, or can you assign such type
Yes,
of
sir.
task
Yes,
to
sir.
students?
The student who went for industrial project, as long as from college side, the student has to work independently with the unknown teams from the industry side, kind of this. And he, as an
Yes, sir.
individual activity, he is supposed to report to the group, to the class, kind of
Okay.
these things. Yes.
Okay. And one more question, sir. One more question,
Okay.
sir. So,
Uh,
any data has been maintained regarding all these activities, and that data has been analyzed, and any further improvements have been done on
Yes,
the
sir.
basis of
This
data
is a
collected?
continuous process. This is a continuous process. Since, as I said, last almost 4 years, I am executing and improving this process and consistently working for the betterment by following this particular technique as such.
Sir, yes, sir. Very good. Very nice explanations you
So
have.
because of some, as we are publishing this particular webinar on YouTube, I have not taken consent from the students. So the
Okay.
information which I have displayed here is I have scrutinized in a such a way that there should not be a question about a personalized information. I have
Yeah.
a well documented Excel sheet or Google form where I have
Okay.
collected the in detail information of the students, their achievements, and I am tracking. So one more thing that
Okay.
just I forgot to present things between. Uh, so today only the student.
Hello everyone, I'm Tejunidhi Deshpande.
They have,
Finally here with
on my request, they have prepared this
it is
document.
said that a
Yeah.
teacher is like a candle. It consumes itself to light the way for others. I'm extremely privileged to say that this statement is 100% applicable to Dr. Professor B.S. Gawali sir. Right from first year, sir has shown us the right path to approach the education in a meaningful way. May it be the lectures of graphics or numerical methods, or may it be the morning visit to our hostels. Sir has always opened our eyes to numerous activities. Sir gave a visit to my hometown Satara during my first year to meet my parents to have a better understanding of my domain of interest and my hobbies. As soon as Sir got to know that my interest lies within robotics, Sir has always motivated and guided me towards my aim by providing the necessary resources and knowledge. And lastly, we will be always thankful to you for your support and kindness.
Very nice, sir. Very nice.
From right from first year. He was there for us for the basic mechanical engineering drawing, and as well as numerical methods. So what I observed is right from the first year, Sir conducted various activities which will directly or indirectly help us to grow our soft skills. When we were in first year, Sir conducted one video presentation activity where we got to know how to work unknown people, how to work with a good quality of team spirit, and how to make a good quality video. So we understood various technical aspects of it. Sir was very strict and very aware about our mental and physical health, as well as the general discipline should be there in us, like cleanliness and all. And Sir made sure that everyone will follow those disciplines. But the best part, which for me was when the Sir visited our home. So he interacted with my parents thoroughly. We got to know about various strengths, weaknesses, and various achievements of mine. And when we were back in college, just made sure that I will continuously sharpen them, and I will enhance those my skills and qualities. So even though we were away from our parents during our college life, but as Sir knew us very personally, we just made sure that we won't lose our momentum in the college life.
Hello, my name is Shubham Gurle, and I would like to throw some light on few of many activities conducted by Professor Dr. V.S. Gawali sir for us. Right from the first year, he assigned the task of creating video of presentation, which taught us the skill to carry ourselves in presentation activities. The video also helped us to analyze our mistakes during the presentation and also helped us in team building skills. He used to visit the hostels early in the morning in order to create awareness about the health as well as discipline by performing exercise along with us. This habit is for sure helping us all in the pandemic situation.
नमस्कार, माझं नाव कानली भोसले. गवळी सरांबद्दल सांगायचं झालं तर नवनवीन अफलातून संकल्पनांचं भांडार म्हणजे गवळी सर. माझी 10वी पर्यंतची असलेली वक्तृत्व कलेविषयीची आवड सरांनी हेरली आणि त्यानंतर प्रत्येक कार्यक्रमामध्ये मग ते आभार प्रदर्शन असो, सूत्रसंचालन असो किंवा मनोगत व्यक्त करण्याची वेळ असो, गवळी सरांचं आग्रहाने प्रोत्साहन हे ठरलेलंच असायचं. असं फक्त माझ्याच बाबतीत नाही, तर असे अनेक विद्यार्थी आहेत की ज्यांच्या कलागुणांना वाव देण्यात सरांचा मोलाचा वाटा आहे. त्यांचा कालांतराने कमी झालेला आत्मविश्वास वाढवण्याचं काम देखील गवळी सरांनी केलं. तर अशा समस्त विद्यार्थ्यांतर्फे मी गवळी सरांचं मनापासून आभार मानते. धन्यवाद सर.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much.
सुहास,
बोला.
yeah, if any questions are there, Santosh, some Professor Santosh is there. You want to Santosh Baburao Pawar? He has raised his hand. If you want to ask questions.
Yes. Sri Vallabh Chavan.
No, sir.
Santosh Pawar.
Hello, sir.
हाँ बोला.
Nice session, sir. I'm speaking from here, Gadingla, sir. You, sir, conducted very good activity for first year students. I am audible, sir? Am I
Yes,
audible?
sir.
Yes, you are audible.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Your activity is so nice, which is promoted for the first year student. One question regarding that one I want to ask you is that, sir, as far as we people are concerned, I am from Gadingla. Here, what happens, sir? Many first year students who oftenly take admission for the first year,
Hello.
they are